So you're ready to start working on your capstone career presentation. The purpose of this video is to share some tips and some insight into the things that I'll be focused on for the career presentation. A few of you have met with me already to start planning for this capstone project, so I thought it'd be a good idea to share the advice that I'd given to those students with the group at large. So depending on which course you're in, you are starting to work through Module 5 and have due dates for those assignments coming up very shortly. Shortly after Module 5, however, we turn to Module 6. Module 6 provides access to both the capstone career presentation, which you were introduced to in Module 4, and also the final exam. Note that for all classes, you will have different due dates for these two final projects. Both are worth 100 points, so if you are concerned right now about your grade, don't worry. A lot of students end up recouping a lot of points towards the end of the semester. So I want to focus on some tips for the capstone career presentation that might help you in your research and your organization, since this is a big project and the due date is right around the corner. So the first thing that you need to do is go to Module 6 and locate the career presentation direction. So you'll do that in the Module 6 Assessments folder. The directions, the rubric, examples, and web links for resources passing the CARS test are actually embedded in the assignment submission area. So if you click here, this will bring you to the assignment submission, but also to links to those different resources. So you want to make sure that you are pulling up your instructions and your rubric, and you may also find this document for the web links to be useful, and then also some of the examples as well. You'll notice these examples are narrated. As online students, you will have to add a narration or a voiceover to your presentation. So you can click on the microphone icon or megaphone icon in order to hear the student's presentation for each of those slides. So let's just take a quick look at the rubric versus the instructions. These are pretty much the same information, just laid out differently. You can decide which one you want to build upon for your organization of your project. So the instructions outline the topic. The topic is a career that is of interest to you. It does not have to be one of the top 3 that you shared with me. It doesn't have to be the career that you're currently pursuing. If you're starting to explore something new, you might want to take this opportunity to dig deep into your exploration of that career, but then also start to make some of those connections to yourself in the evaluation process. As I mentioned, you will be required to add a narration. This is worth 20 points, so you'll want to make sure that you're starting to plan and be mindful of that coming up. You will also have to include an annotated list of references, and some tips on that in a little bit. So just very quickly, I want you to see the connections here. So the first section is the career description, and if we tack back and forth to the rubric, you can see those same bullets are here, and this will outline the rubric will outline the points that can be gathered. So one way that you can approach this is say, okay, well, there are 4 bullets, there are 10 points. I want to make sure that I'm addressing each of these completely in order to maximize my points in those areas. So the first 3 pieces of the career presentation have you researching research on collecting data on and research on the career itself. We know from Module 4 that the career exploration process is that we gather a whole lot of information about the career, we gather a whole lot of information about ourselves, and we've done that already in Modules 1, 2, and 3 with some of the self-assessments. And then we start to analyze this. We make the connections between our strengths, our preferences, our needs, our interests, and those pertaining to the job ultimately, so that we can ultimately evaluate and say, yes, we're still on a good path. I think this is the right one for me, or no, I've learned a lot through this process. I may need to reconsider changing my major or changing my pathway. But these first 3 sections are pretty detailed with your collection of information and research particular to the career. After these first 3 sections, you're going to see the first level of analysis. This is called the reality check. This is your first level of analysis where you're starting to consider the information that you collected in steps 1, 2, and 3. You're starting to consider, do you like what you found to be the detailed work activities? What are some of the negatives, the drawbacks to the work environment? What about the perks, the pros, and the cons with salary, job outlook? When you found your job posting, did it link to the information? Did it reflect the information that you had found in this first section? What about the level of education required? Do you want to pursue that level of education? Do the names and titles of courses and degrees excite you? How would you start here at IRSC? Do you like that pathway at IRSC? So those are some of the questions that you want to consider in the reality check. Now here, and this was some of the feedback that I gave to you guys in M4A2, because some of you gave this to me in M4A2, but I don't want you going to the internet and searching pros of becoming a nurse practitioner. These are somebody else's pros. This is somebody else's idea. I want this analysis to be yours based on the information that you just collected. The next step after there is a list of the results from the different self-assessments. Now you guys already did most of this comprehensively with the self-portrait assignment. So a lot of students will take a picture of that assignment or copy and paste if you use Kaggle that image right here into a slide and may include some of the work values and the career interest profiler just in another section since those weren't included on the self-portrait. The self-portrait, remember, was M3A1 and the career interest profiler and the work values came from Module 4. So once you list, and all you need to do is list here, then you start to analyze. And this to me is the most important section. This is where you are starting to make the connections between what you learned about the career and what you know to be true about yourself. Here you want to try to make specific connections between those research points that you collected and yourself, highlighting very specifically what are your strengths and preferences from the self-assessment inventories. So an example may be, based on the successful intelligence assessment, I found that I'm a strong analytic thinker. If I am going to pursue a career as a researcher, then I am going to have to be familiar with the scientific method of collecting information and moving from a part to whole in order to answer a research question. These are skills that somebody with a strong analytic thinking preference or thinking skill would excel at, right? So you're making specific connections and then you're moving into your needs and your interests and then again to your values and your long-term goals. Some of this we have addressed already, your needs and interests. You may have addressed some of this in M4A2 in making an informed career decision, and your personal values and long-term goals. This is again information that we've been talking about since the beginning of the term. Then you'll move into your final evaluation, answering the question, I'm a good fit for this career because, or I'm not a good fit for this career. So again, we can go back to the rubric and see that each of these sections align with the instructions. The only thing that is specific here and maybe not outlined in a numerical form on the instructions is the inclusion of the narration and also your resources used. If you look at the instructions, that information is included up here, but it isn't bulleted out again as a step 8 add narration, step 9. So using both the instructions and the rubric to check your work will be important. Another useful tool is the web links, and here the web links are going to give you the links that you can specifically use to collect research in each of those different sections. This is really great because your SLS professors have already vetted these as credible and accurate and reasonable with adequate support. So we've passed the CARS test for you already. So use these as your first line of research instead of just going and going to an initial Google search. The next step early on is for you to make a plan for how you're going to complete this assignment well before the final due date. Now, from the BE, you may remember that you were either a multitask or single task persistent. For large projects like this, I usually like to dedicate a large chunk of time and complete lots of the different steps, but that's how I like to work through projects. You might find that you can't find those big chunks of time, so you really need to break it up over the next couple of weeks as we work forward towards the due dates. So you can use the assignment for M5A2 to actually structure this process for you, or you can use M5A1, or you can use M5A1 for another course and then apply part of this practice to the career presentation. So take a look at what I did here if I were planning this project. So here, I've scheduled out all of the dates from now until the due date, and I selected one course that has the due date on the 28th, but make sure that you are double checking the schedule of activities for your course's due date. And this is basically what I have broken up. I'm chunking this assignment. We know that chunking is a super study strategy, but it's also a great strategy for breaking up a large and overwhelming task, helping us fight some of that procrastination by breaking it down into short and smaller manageable tasks over the course of time. So the first thing that I'm doing today is I'm getting this announcement. So I'm reviewing the directions, I'm reviewing the rubric, and I'm taking a look at 2 of the examples that are posted. So after you've done this, you may want to think about that, digest this, look at your schedule for your other courses from now until the end of the semester, and then tomorrow sit down and start to create a schedule for completing the different tasks for the career presentation. That's where we are here. And you may want to do this and create a master schedule from this for all your courses. And then another quick thing for you to do on the front end of your organizing your research is to find some good resources. Find some good, credible, accurate, reasonable sources that pass the CARS test. And a lot of that I've provided for you in the document that's listed, but also I listed them again here. I provided you with 3. The next thing that you might want to do is make an outline in PowerPoint, and I'm going to show you what I did for the purpose of this video. So I opened up a blank PowerPoint presentation, and then I also had the assignment directions pulled up. And basically, I just went back and forth with the instructions, and I created slides. So I came here and I copied that, and then I pasted it here. I made this a little neater because I like it all to be neat on the front end. And I did this for each of the different sections. So continue that. And so here I take you through the brief career description and then the specific tasks. This took me about 7 minutes. So you'll make that outline, and then one thing that you'll probably find that when you're making the outline, it's pretty easy for you to collect the career details from sources like ONET or Career Coach, so you might decide to do that as well. And then what you can really do is, depending on how much time you have over the course of several days, you can then start to complete each of the different sections. You can use the rubric, you can use the instructions, you can use this outline to monitor your completion, but basically you're breaking it down and you're doing a little bit every day. The only section that I think might take you a little bit longer out of those first 3 is the education and training section. And I have and that's why I've broken it down to a research day and then completing that section. As we move forward into the reality check, I'm making a note to check M4A2 because a lot of that thinking and listing those original pros and cons was done there. Complete the reality check, and then another task is to locate the self-portrait as I'm moving through the self-assessment category and double check all of the assessments there with the ones that are listed on the rubric and the instructions. You can use the schedule of activities to fill in any gaps of anything that might be missing and complete the self-assessment section. Then you can move forward, do the analyze and evaluate, the final evaluation, and then just finish it up by adding your annotated list of references and the narration, continuing to review and revise it for a couple of days, maybe adding pictures or graphics. And then I always like to try to submit everything a day early. This allows me to build in some time just in case something comes up that I get sick, or my kids get sick, or I have to work on a big project at work and I lose some time elsewhere. This allows me to always have a day that I could work with. And then oftentimes students say that they have issues submitting their work, so this allows you 24 hours at least to problem solve with me in case you have any submission issues. So hopefully this outline has helped you. In the next video, I'm going to just take you very quickly through that PowerPoint outline and point you to the best resources for completing each of those different sections.